Hello, Mrs. Below here. In this video, I'm going to be going over how to do a picket fence problem. Now, essentially what a picket fence is, that's the term that I use, it is a conversion. So we're converting from one unit into a different unit. And in order to do that, we have to figure out what are we going to start with and what unit conversion factors are we going to use. So for example, a unit conversion would be, like a unit conversion factor would be, for example, like 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters, or like 60 minutes equals 1 hour. So those are some of these, like, and some of them you don't know. The ones that you don't know, either I would give to you or you're going to have to figure out given the word problem. And then these are what are going to get plugged into the picket fence to convert from what we're given into what we want our answer to be in. So I'm going to walk through those steps in this first problem here. So the problem says if DNA polymerase can replicate 270,000 nucleotides in 1.5 hours. So right there, this is one of those equalities that I'm getting from the word problem. So it says that this many 270,000 nucleotides, I'm just going to use N as my unit for nucleotides. I know it seems weird to see nucleotide as a unit, but you can pretty much have any type of unit, okay? We're going to use other units just besides like minutes, hours, feet, inches. We're going to use different units besides those. So 270,000 nucleotides can be replicated in 1.5 hours. So that means that these two are actually, I'm going to use HR for hours, these two are actually equal to each other. HRs for hours, okay? Because that many nucleotides can be replicated in 1.5 hours, so that means the two are equal to each other. So now I'm going to continue reading the rest of my sentence here. So then it says, how many nucleotides can it replicate in 1 second? So it's saying how many. Well, you don't know how many. That's what you're trying to figure out. So that's what we want our answer in. So how I write this as an equality, and this is how you're going to figure out what to start your picket fence with. So it says, how many nucleotides? Well, I don't know how many nucleotides. Like, that's what I'm solving for. It's like a question mark or like X. So I'm going to write question mark because I don't know how many. I don't know what that number is. That's what my answer will be. Question mark, and then I'm going to write N for nucleotides because I don't know how many nucleotides. Can it replicate in 1 second? So that means this is equal to 1 second, SEC for second. Now, I always do this type of equality because this is going to tell me what I'm going to start my picket fence with. So whatever the question mark is equal to, that's what you're going to start. So 1 second. That's what you're going to start your picket fence with. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to convert 1 second into nucleotides. And in order to do that, we're going to have to use some of the unit conversion factors, some of our, I call these equalities. Now, there are some equalities that they're not given to you in the problem, but you would just know them. And oftentimes, this is going to have to deal with time. So, for example, I see that I'm going to be dealing with hours and seconds. So I'm going to need some type of unit conversion to get between hours and seconds. Well, I know that one hour equals 60 minutes, and I know that 60 minutes I'm sorry. We'll say 1 minute equals 60 seconds. This is something that you just know. So this is how we're going to convert between hours and seconds. So if you're doing a problem and you see time in the problem, then you're probably going to have to figure out what other unit conversion factors you need. Okay, so now I can go ahead and I could start plugging things into my Picket fence. So we use this guy right here. That was what we figured out. Okay, this is what I'm starting with. So I'm starting with 1 second. The next step for completing a Picket fence is you have to plug things in. So I always start here in the bottom, okay? And you're always, no matter what, you are always going to put the unit that's here, you're going to write the same unit down here in the bottom. Because ultimately, this is one giant fraction or division. And if you have the same units in the top and the bottom, they will cancel with each other. And when we get to the end, you'll see why that's important. It's kind of like if you have like 2 over 2, that's 1. Or if you have x over x, like 2 over 2, that's like 1. If you have x over x, like that's also 1. So they cancel with each other. So you're always, no matter what, you're always going to look at this unit and you're going to write the same unit here. And now I got to figure out, okay, well, what number goes here? Well, if I look at my other equalities, this is what we're going to plug into the Picket fence. I see that I have 60 seconds here. So I'm going to go ahead and put 60 seconds here. And then whatever you put in the bottom, whatever goes above it, it needs to be equal to. So 60 seconds is equal to 1 minute. So I have to put 1 minute above it. And seconds would cancel in the top and bottom. All you did was you just converted seconds into minutes. So if you have 1 second and you were trying to figure out how many minutes that is, you would simply divide 1 by 60, okay? We're just showing that in a different way. Now, your question might be, how do I know when I'm done with my Picket fence? Well, you're going to know when you're done when you've used up all of these equalities. So we use this one, and you're also going to know when you're done when all of the units cancel besides the unit you want your answer in. So I'm going to continue in my Picket fence, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I see minutes are here, so I'm also going to write minutes there. And I'm like, okay, well, how many minutes? Well, looking at my 2 equalities I have left, I have 60 minutes, so I'm going to write that in the bottom. Well, if I put 60 minutes in the bottom, well, whatever goes above it, it has to be equal to, and that is equal to 1 hour. So I'm going to put 1 hour in the top. And so minutes will cancel in the top and the bottom, and right now I am in hours. So essentially all I've done so far is I've converted seconds into hours. But hours is not what I want my final answer in. I want my final answer in nucleotides. That's what we're trying to solve for. So I use this equality. So my only one left that I have to use is this one right here. So again, same exact thing. I see hours here, so I'm going to have to put hours in the bottom. Well, how many hours? Okay, well, looking at the equality, it says 1.5, and that is equal to, so whatever goes above it, 270,000, and then N represents nucleotides. So use this equality, and hours cancel in the top and bottom. The only unit that I have not canceled so far is N, which is nucleotides, and that was ultimately what I wanted my answer in. So we just converted seconds into nucleotides. The last part is the math, okay? And you just have to be careful with this because of order of operations. So what you're going to do is you're going to multiply everything in the top and everything in the bottom and then divide. So in the top here, we have 1 times 1 times 1 times 270,000. So that's 270,000. In the bottom, I'm going to have to do 60 times 60 times 1.5, which is 5,400. Okay, so most of my students, they'll at least do this step here, and then your final answer, to get that, you're going to do 270,000 divided by 5,400, and we're going to get 50. And you're like, okay, well, 50 what? You have to have units in your final answer, and most of the time you have to round 2 decimal places, but this happens to be a whole number, so we'll just leave it as a whole number. And the final unit is nucleotides, because that was what the question was asking. It was asking how many nucleotides, okay? And also that was what I wanted my answer in, and that's the only unit that did not cancel. And that is how you do a Picket fence. Please note for number 3 here that you do have to pay attention to this one right here. That will be an equality that you need. Okay, and for this one, you're going to get a really big number. You're going to see this E, and that's okay. I will go over that in class, what that means. It's also posted in the key as well. And then for question number 2 here, it does say, assume there is only one nuclease. So this part right here, that one nuclease, that actually is not going to be relevant. So you actually don't have to worry about that when writing your equalities, okay? Sometimes there will be information provided that is not necessary. Since you're assuming there's only one nuclease working, it's not going to be equal to anything. It's not going to be involved in an equality.